Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and thank you for attending this week's customer brown bag session. We will be focusing on security today. My name is Lisa Carnes. I'm one of the CSMs here at Sumo Logic, and I'm going to get things kicked off real quick. So for those of you who are new, if you've never been to this before, we launched this series last April, and we have them every second, third, and fourth Tuesdays of the month, and they're designed as an opportunity for our customers to spend some time with the Sumo subject matter expert. And so today we are having this session led by one of our PMs, JT, and he's going to be covering Sumo Logic's cloud infrastructure security for AWS. And then we also have on the line our Senior Director of Product Management, Basham, and he's going to help cover questions as they come up as well. I will open up the chat to questions for everyone. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can use the Q&A, or you can raise your hand. We can take you off mute, etc. So without further ado, I will kick it over to JT.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that intro, Lisa. It's always a great day when I get to hang out with Lisa. She is just such an awesome person with so much energy. You can't not have a good day. So, thank you for having me. This is my second one. I think the first one I did was back in October.
Yep.
That's crazy. I'm still here. I haven't moved from this very spot. So, hopefully I'll get up and, stretch my legs at some point. But today, like Lisa said, we're going to be diving in a little bit into our latest and greatest security product, if I do say so myself, called Cloud Infrastructure Security for AWS. So now that poll is probably starting to make a little bit of sense there as to why we were asking if you're an AWS user. And so just to be upfront about everything, for the purposes of what we're covering in this session today, it is going to be entirely AWS centric. But don't worry, as we go through this presentation, we'll kind of very briefly talk about a little bit of what's in store for maybe our non-AWS compatriots. So let us begin at the beginning. I wanted to kind of just set the stage with a little bit of context. Memes aside, let's look at the numbers here more on the right hand side of the screen. So, and of course, everything is linked. This is from the cost of the data breach report by our good friends over at IBM and the Ponemon Institute, of course. Basically, in plain and simple, it takes 258 days to fully identify and then contain a breach that is due to some form of misconfiguration. That's a chunk of time. What, maybe 9 months or so? So no one's got time for that, right? Furthermore, only about a third, roughly, of cybersecurity leaders are able to successfully use risk quantification in some capacity to actually drive enterprise decision making. We want to try to get those numbers up. And so, as you'll see as we go through the demo and do a few more things, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can calculate risk and surface that to our users. Last but very much not least, roughly 60% of cloud security incidents are a result of credential issues. And we know that these are very, very difficult to detect on average, right? When someone compromises your credentials, they impersonate you. So it's really difficult to kind of figure out what exactly is going on, who's running amok in your infrastructure if it turns out that they've compromised your credentials. So moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about, since this is very cloud focused, everyone's, moving to the cloud. Digital transformation is more than a buzzword. It's an initiative that's been taking place for years and years and years now. So really what I wanted to do is kind of just map things out a little bit. And this is how I orient my thinking. So typically the hallmark of cloud computing is microservices. And some of you who maybe joined me back in October learned about how I say, back in on-prem with the old school monolithic architecture, you have a single large perimeter, but then when you move to microservices, you have micro perimeters around every single one of those microservices. So your attack surface balloons exponentially. It just takes off. So really, what I wanted to do was kind of typify what is a microservice. And so here you have this layout here of the microservices that AWS typically offers. And then I translated that or mapped it, pun very much intended, to a map of AWS's microservices that they use, right? And look at the size of that. How are you actually going to maintain security visibility over all of this? You can't throw enough bodies at that problem, right? So we want to do it smarter, we want to do it better, we want to do it faster. What's that Daft Punk song, right? Harder, faster, better, stronger, whatever. Who cares? So anyway, but what does this mean in real world terms? So you probably are familiar with the whole cost of a global data breach from 2023, again brought to you by our friends at IBM and Ponemon. The global cost of a data breach on average is $4.45 million. Now, here I specifically call out the cost of a data breach in the public cloud as $4.57 million. It's a little bit higher, sure, in nominal terms, right? It maybe isn't that different in the grand scheme of things, 4.45 versus 4.57, but it is still a little bit more, right? And ideally you don't want to have to pay for a data breach, right? You don't want to be breached in the first place. So moving right along, how might you make some of this stuff happen? So in this graphic, we really wanted to show the interplay for dev, sec, and ops. Really quickly in the chat, put a 1 in the chat if your org currently embraces DevSecOps practices or the DevSecOps mindset. And then if you don't put anything. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want numbers. So, anyway, as that kind of populates, hopefully, if I haven't put people to sleep yet, really what this does is we wanted to show that interplay, right? So you guys are in security, you guys are in observability, you know these types of workflows. When something starts to go wrong with, in the security realm, what do? You investigate, you analyze, and then once you've found whatever that issue is, you go and say, hey, dev, we need you to fix it. Or maybe maybe you're an SRE as well. You're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, the platform could go down due to this misconfiguration here, and we were going to have to take it offline for a while to go fix it, right? But you guys are actually the boots on the ground that are making all this stuff happen. So this is really what kind of typifies that. We have some different scenarios that could kind of play out there. But really what we want to do is bring everyone from all three of those branches together. I don't like using the term single pane of glass because I feel like it's very, very cliche at this point. Everybody claims single pane of glass, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going with single source of truth. And this is really where cloud infrastructure security for AWS starts to kind of poke its head up and be like, hey, hold on, I got an idea. We can do it better, right? So really what we want to do is we want to bring all three of these branches together so you can more effectively manage your cloud risk and keep your cloud infrastructure secure. Hence the name. Amazing, right on the nose there. So these are some dashboards. We're going to take a much closer look at this moving forward as I go through a demo a little bit later. And then also at the end of the presentation, if you want to take a closer look for yourselves, we have tons of useful links all related to cloud infrastructure security for AWS, so you can kind of take that deeper dive and a closer look for yourself. All right. So before we dive headfirst into this, this is a nice little graphic about the NIST cybersecurity framework. Hopefully some of you are familiar with this, or most of you are familiar with this. And really what we wanted to do is we wanted to just kind of talk through how our capabilities within the product map to this framework in specific. So we've got all different aspects, all the 5 categories covered in some way, shape, or form, and this is just based on our first release of the product since our preview, which came out in very early December of 2023. So we've been cranking, we've been crunching, and we've been sprucing it up ever since. And this is now all readily available, as a matter of fact, in the Sumo platform. We're, again, going to go through some of that. But a few things I wanted to kind of call out, in the identify category. First and foremost, we have some normalization going on. We're normalizing across various AWS security services to make sure that all of that data is uniform and you can seamlessly transition, right, between all of these different services, as opposed to actually pivoting in between all of these 5 different services. Furthermore, we have over 300 policy checks, security policy checks, courtesy of AWS Security Hub. And so we use all of those to surface this information to your team. We also have a little bit of AI. Can't sleep on that AI, as I'm sure many great historians have said. And so we've got AI-driven anomaly detection. We're trying to bake in more and more AI to help you all do your job faster and more efficiently, and maybe even more accurately, surfacing those things that maybe you don't catch at a glance. So I'll kind of stop hitting on this. We're going to touch on all these things a little bit later as we go through it. So before I do that, I want to very quickly.
And then one of the things you'll notice.
Can you all hear that, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I want to make sure it was configured appropriately. Really quickly, I just wanted to say, by going here to our Sumo Logic dashboard, if we come over here to AWS Security at the top, it's right there, front and center, Cloud Infrastructure Security for AWS. And so I'm going to go here really quickly and talk a little bit about the configuration and the onboarding. So first, and pardon the background noise. Oh, oops. I meant, where was it? I can't find the onboarding flow here. Who knew? I wanted to show off the initial screen here for onboarding. I don't know where it went. Okay, well, all that aside, I apologize that I wasn't able to just pull this up really fast. I'll kind of putter around and see if I can figure that out. But essentially, what we've done is we have a very simplified, straightforward onboarding process made available via an AWS CloudForm template. And the idea is, what we want to get you up and running with one click in under 30 minutes. Currently, we're benchmarking it around 20 minutes or so. So not too bad. I've got a little video here compiled by the one, the only, the indomitable Bosham. So this is just a little excerpt kind of walking through the CloudForm template. So I'm going to go and play that for you right now.
And then one of the things you'll notice is that here, as a user, I'm already logged into my AWS account. So that's why I was able to pick it up right away. And pretty much, I'm just simply following the defaults in the CloudFormation template, right? The only places where I need to provide input, and this is a key tip that you want to keep in mind. You have to use AWS organizations. AWS organizations is very much like Sumo organizations. It's a way for you to consolidate multiple AWS.
I apologize, everyone. There we go. That's what I wanted.
One of the things you'll notice is that here, as a user, I'm already logged into my AWS account. So that's why I was able to pick it up right away. And pretty much, I'm just simply following the defaults in the CloudFormation template, right? The only places where I need to provide input, and this is a key tip that you want to keep in mind. You have to use AWS organizations. AWS organizations is very much like Sumo organizations. It's a way for you to consolidate multiple AWS accounts into a single management view, which is what this is. That's what you see on the screen. And then there are two specific kinds of accounts that AWS recommends using. One is called the security tooling account, which is sort of the delegated account for managing things like security hub, guard duty, and so on. So I'm just simply entering the ID for that account in the appropriate place in the CloudFormation template. And then the log archiving account is basically a consolidated account for centralizing all your CloudTrail logs in particular, right? So that's pretty much all I did. And pretty much in this case, the assumption here is sort of a greenfield installation, meaning that I'm setting up all the sources, the collectors and the sources for the very first time. But there is an option in this CloudFormation template to actually reuse existing CloudTrail and other sources if you happen to have one. But in this case, as you can see, I'm just, really quickly scrolling through, picking the defaults in a greenfield one, and then letting the CloudFormation template run, right? And then while the thing is running, you make sure you can have a browse at the specific documentation links from AWS that explains what is AWS organizations and the two accounts that we are actually using in here. Great. So let this finish. And then now when you go back to the CloudFormation, what you'll notice there is it's taken roughly 20 minutes from start to finish, right? And now it's done. So you can actually look at the timestamps when you get this video and look at the timestamps. It's literally 20 minutes, right? So from clicking the button in the app catalog to getting the software working and running is about 20 minutes, right? So that's the time to value that we keep talking about, which is very, very significant in the case of both cloud infrastructure security for AWS and AWS observability. And what I'm actually doing is this particular CloudFormation template is actually forming your CloudTrail stack, your guard duty stack, your security hub stack, and then your firewall stack as well. Basically, what that means is that it's shaping a bunch of things on the AWS side, and then it's also constructing your collector and sources for these things, and then installing the dashboards. That's the thing that it's doing. The 9 dashboards that I talked about, 4 or 5 collectors and sources, and oh, by the way, the monitors and saved searches that come with the application, right? So now the thing is done. And then as a user, you can pretty much go into one of these dashboards right there from the onboarding page itself, right? So you saw me click into a dashboard, and this is another dashboard. Again, in under 20 minutes, I'm able to see all this stuff, right? So it's very huge. And then this last link is basically the pre-built monitors, which I talked about. We have 15 of these in the box, if you will. And I'll actually show you an example of an actual demo with one of these things. And similarly, you see a saved search folder there, which contains all these. So all of this stuff got installed by the act of running the CloudFormation template.
All righty. So that was a little bit out of context, but don't worry, we're going to fill in some of those gaps right about now with a closer look and a demo. One of the things and why did that start over again? Go. There we go. Demo time. All right. Hopefully everyone was able to hear that. And that kind of jogged my memory there. So what we'll do is actually jump into the app catalog, and this will give me exactly, if I type in cloud infra. Oh, I have next gen apps. There we go. Cloud infrastructure security for AWS. There we go. And there was a question in the chat that John, I believe, or sorry, Joe asked, and it was regarding the documentation. So we did send that link out, but also all the documentation is online and readily available here. So feel free to go to the app catalog and click this link, or use the link in the chat. So when you click install app, this is what I was looking for earlier. I was just looking in the wrong place. So it's very, very easy to do. All you do to get to the point where Basham took over on that video is you just click deploy AWS security, and I don't have a login, which is why I wanted to skip this step. But it would take you in, you would just log in, all of it would be pre-populated, and then you follow that flow as Bosham described. All right, so that seems like it's a new tab. All right, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with assuming you have your cloud infrastructure security for AWS installed and everything is up and running. You might get something like a Slack alert that is configured saying, hey, there's something going wrong. AWS Guard Duty thinks that there might be some credential exfiltration. Let's go investigate that, shall we? So you come to Slack with this link to a dashboard, which happens to be our risk overview dashboard here in Cloud Infrastructure Security for AWS. And this is just going to take a second to get all populated. But as you can see, the client IP address, which is the traffic source where they think it's a malicious IP, according to CrowdStrike Threat Intel, it's been matched with that. As many of you probably know, we do offer that in Sumo, free of charge. So it's all pre-populated, and we think that there might be something going wrong with the APIs, or maybe there are some threats by AWS resources. There's also some failed security controls that we can investigate. But really what we want to do is, at a glance, we want to be able to pull in those teams from security, dev, or ops, DevSecOps, however you want to call it. We want to get them all together so they're looking at that same single source of truth, so they can investigate this together as a team, find out what's wrong, and then take action, right? So I'm going to go click in here, and all of these dashboards are cross-linked to specific dashboards. So all you do is click on active threats, and it's going to pull this up in a new tab. Once this populates, you can see again at a glance the different threats by resource, and all of this has the respective information there. You know, we're still dealing with that same potentially malicious client IP address. We have a trend line, and then here we can actually start to get into some of the nitty-gritty details. So in this, the threats are sliced and diced by the events that are taking place in AWS. And so here we see that they've done create a DB snapshot. They've done 2, it seems, counts of describe instances. They've modified a DB snapshot, modified an instance attribute. They've also started and stopped instances. So this is endemic of some pretty malicious behavior. They're trying to do something, right? Things aren't going according to plan, maybe, and they're trying to go and muck around with what we've got. Furthermore, we can see here that apparently this is coming from a source in Lomé, which happens to be scoping out part of Togo, where for sake of argument, I don't think we don't have a business presence over there. So this is, again, very fishy behavior. So what we want to do is drill down even closer. And so we can go to the little 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner of this box, and we can click open and log search. And this is going to take us into, hopefully, what is for more of our Sumo veterans, something that you are very well versed in. For those of you who are a little bit newer, this is actually going to get us to the actual log messages that we can then search through. So we would go click on the messages tab here on the left-hand side, and you can see here is a list of those 7 different events that we saw earlier, right? So we want to take a little bit of a closer look. We can go and scroll down to the 7th, quote unquote, log message, because these are listed in reverse chronological order. Or in chronological order. And then what we want to do is come over here and click Open Log Message Inspector. So this is actually going to show us a log. You can view it as raw, which is the raw information, but we want to view it as a JSON, so everything's contextualized. We'll mouse over mute user identity, and we can see here it says assumed role. And typically what this means is this is a temporary credential that was granted by the system, by AWS. What we want to do is then look into the request parameters as well. And we can see here that we've got the DB snapshot identifier. It's a production DB snapshot. Here is the specific instance identifier. And just to make things a little bit easier for me, I'm going to go type in event name here, and this will correlate directly with all of those different events that we saw in the previous dashboard, right? So this is just making it easier for me to keep track of what I'm looking at specifically. So what we want to do is scroll through these messages and try to find out exactly what's going on, what was changed. So here we can see that there was something added in this production DB snapshot here. And we are probably looking for some sort of instance, and here we have it. This is the instance ID. So what we would want to do is copy this, copy that, parentheses included. And we're going to scroll up here, and then using the search capabilities in Sumo, I grabbed that little guy. We're going to close out the log inspector. We're going to add in that instance ID. We don't need really anything down below here. So we're going to come over here and delete that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run a search because we want to see what's going on with respect to this specific instance ID here. And so here we can see again, we've got all of these different log messages and we have these different access keys. So we want to go and take a closer look at that. So again, here we have all these different actions by event, but we want to focus in on that access key. So we just have to click it here. And now we can see that there are two separate access keys. So let's click on this guy, take a closer look. Oh, I don't know why I did that. Kind of jumped over there. But within this access key, now that we've sorted, right, by this specific access key, we want to go and take a look at the actions that this access key has, or that are associated with this access key. And then bing, bang, boom, we've got all three separate things where they're trying to go and get information from our AWS instance, right? And so we want to put a stop to that. So this is just a very, very rapid, quick overview of how you can kind of go from start to finish using the dashboards to immediately see what's wrong at a glance and then further investigate by actually diving into the logs themselves. And we have another really neat little capability to help make this even easier. You thought it was impossible, but no, it is never impossible. And these are our automated playbooks. So if you folks are familiar with our Cloud SIM offering, we do have automated playbooks from our automation service there, similar to what we offer in our SOAR product as well. And now we're starting to bake some of that automated functionality directly into cloud infrastructure security for AWS. So once again, I'm going to hand it over to the one and only Basham to take a little bit of a closer look at how some of these playbooks might operate. So without further ado, here you go.
So in this is one of the folders that
I forgot to put it back in slideshow mode. There we go. That's why.
This is one of the folders that gets installed with the app. The one that I was the Slack notification that you saw is actually for this particular guard duty finding. And when I look at the monitor history, hopefully this doesn't happen in real life because it looks like, this account has been getting hacked all the time. Doesn't happen that often, hopefully. But for the sake of demo, I can see that this is going on. So here I am launching the alert. And I can actually see the playbook. And then the details of the playbook itself. This is a pretty complicated playbook. But the key thing that you want to keep in mind is that it gives you lots of options. As a customer, you can really figure out what parts of this playbook do you want to actually practice in your SOC environment or what have you. But if you look at the details here, it's got flavors where you can pretty much do a manual investigation by creating a bunch of Jira tickets and then following through that way. Or if you want to do the automated version, then you can see that it starts from, doing these queries, getting more details on the particular IAM user. And by the way, it came from an alert. You can actually see the alert payload. You can see the alert payload over here. Sorry, clicked on the wrong place. So the alert payload is basically, this is what comes from the alert, from the logs platform, if you will. All the details of it. This is the input to the playbook, if you will. And then all the decisions are based on the alert payload, right? In this case, the path that this particular user has chosen to do is, basically do a whole bunch of automated steps, including looking at Azure Active Directory, getting group memberships for the user and so on, just to build some more context around this stuff, and then going through this process. And at the top, you'll see an option in the user choice for you to, if you want to do like automated actions, the user could have done that over here, right? And one of the automated actions for them would be to disable the access key, right? And then create a rule group in the AWS network firewall. And then what that means is that it's actually blocking the particular client IP address, right? And then going through a bunch of validation steps and then resolving alert, if you will. Again, as a user, you could have chosen to go down the automated path in this playbook, or in this particular example, you've actually gone down the manual path, just for the sake of illustration. And then at the end of it, once there's, let me see if I can do this. So, yeah, I can just say, I've done the manual investigation, and then the final step resolves the alert. So this is now going back into the logs platform. Hopefully this finishes and you'll see the alert has been resolved, right? All right, so it's still active. Let's see what happens.
And he's going to do a quick check here to make sure it was resolved.
Yep, got resolved, right? So this is an idea of, alert to automation to, alert resolution through a combination of, manual steps as well as, automated steps using AWS APIs.
All righty. So again, a quick little overview of all of that. Now, currently we do offer 4 of these automated playbooks available right out of the box, but never fear, we are working on more to bring even more of that automated goodness to you.
So in this is one of the 4.
Okay, let's see. There we go. Gosh, all these steps. So I'm going to hit you with a ton of text, but never fear. This is all broken down in one of our blogs that we actually just released on February 15th. It's going to go and take a much closer look at everything that we've talked about and go deeper on each of these bullet points individually. But essentially, really, like I said, what we want to do is we want to offer that single source of truth. We want to bring DevSec and Ops together so they can do their jobs respectively faster and better. And we do that by consolidating security signals from all these different AWS accounts and regions. I also showed you some of the pre-built dashboards. Now, I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but we are drawing predominantly from 5 AWS security services, and they're listed here as GuardDuty, Security Hub, CloudTrail, Firewall, and WAF, or Web Activity Firewall. And so I also mentioned earlier when we were looking at the NIST chart, we have our normalized entity data, so you don't have to go and pivot between services. We've got those 300 security policy checks from Security Hub. We have that built-in threat intel as well. And that has correlation on our AWS CloudTrail logs that you'd be bringing in. And that, again, is provided free of charge as part of what we do here at Sumo. You can also surface your suspicious activities, whether it's user, IAM, or network. And we have some AI-driven anomaly detection in there as well to help you understand where these behaviors deviate from your specific baseline, right? So we surface all of that for you so you don't have to dig around and try to figure out what's anomalous and what isn't. We also have out-of-the-box saved searches and monitors, which again, you briefly saw over there. Currently, we have 15 saved searches and 15 monitors as well. But like I said, just like with the playbooks, we're working on more. So never fear, we are still crunching those. And then, yeah, I also mentioned the playbooks. You saw a firsthand look at kind of how the playbook flow works. So yeah, there you have it. Now, like I promised at the beginning of our little conversation here, if you want to take a closer look at what we have to offer, we've got a brand spanking new ebook talking about how you can increase your security visibility by using AWS and Sumo Logic. It's a very high level overview, but it should give you more of that flavor if you're looking to maybe move to the cloud. Or move to AWS specifically. Now I know from the survey results that most of you folks are on AWS, so maybe you don't need to take a closer look at that one. But like I mentioned, there's that blog about making the cloud the safest place to compute, and so we're going to go through all those bullet points I just outlined in even greater detail, and so it's going to give you a better characterization of what we have to offer. We've got a solution brief as well. I don't know if that's gonna do anything for you, but it's a nice little bite-sized kind of snackable piece of content that just has a very high-level overview of our specific solution, cloud infrastructure security for AWS. And then we've got a micro lesson, which again is a very small, I think it's about 3 minutes, so real easy to digest. It's just a little overview. It talks about some of the things that you can do, some of the use cases behind cloud infrastructure security for AWS. And very much last, but very much not least, is our clickable demo, which actually will take a closer look at what I just did. Everything is annotated as well, so it's going to give you a very detailed breakdown of all the different steps that are required. What's the information you're looking for? What are the telltale signs in this simulated attack that we've done? It starts with that Slack alert and takes you all the way to finding those different access keys. So without any further ado, actually that is the last slide I have prepared for the day, and I think we've got some questions in here.
Yes, Basham was addressing them. The one question was, do we know when the pre-built playbooks were made available for customers? And Basham answered with, we are hoping in about 1 week. The playbooks are actually a part of an AI-driven alerting capability that we're launching next week.
That is correct. Yes. Oh, and actually, I don't think
actually, if you guys can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, anyone who's interested in any of the CI stuff that JT was presenting, that's obviously GA, but it includes these things like playbooks and anomaly alerts and so on. That is being worked on towards a GA path. But even for those things, if you let Lisa know your org ID, we can activate them for you as well. So you'll have a complete package.
Absolutely. And it is also worth noting, I don't think I hit on this earlier, but it is readily available in the app catalog. And since you're all Sumo customers, it is available for free. So go download it, go install it, go check it out. Give us your feedback. I want to hear some gut reactions from you folks. What are you loving? What do you think maybe is something that we should focus on a little bit, right? Test it out. See what it can do for you. It costs you nothing. It's ready to go.
Absolutely. Yes. And then like Basham said, you all have account teams here at Sumo Logic. You have usually an account manager, maybe a technical account manager, customer success manager. And so in your next meeting with them, feel free to bring this up as well if you'd like additional training specifically with your environment and your use case with Sumo Logic. But I'd be also happy to find out who those people are for you in the event you don't know who they are, if you just shoot me a quick email. So I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat too, just in case. Okay. All right. Now, great job, JT. Thank you, Basham. Are there any other questions from the group that we can help answer? So we do have several minutes left if you would like us to answer anything else. Okay. Looks like no more questions. That means JT did a great job.
All right. Well, thank you kindly for having me. It's always a blast.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and stop recording.